It's 4:30 p.m. here in Seoul. I'm Devin Whiting at the Arirang News Center, and it's time for today's briefing from the South Korean health authorities. We should be getting updates on the latest COVID-19 case numbers and trends, also the vaccine campaign, and possibly more details on the social distancing measures. We'll go straight to the site when the briefing begins, but today we do know that 610 new cases of COVID-19 were reported. The vaccine campaign continues as well. Again, roughly in the 7% of the population has gotten their first doses. Only 1,200 roughly got their first doses today, because right now the priority is on giving out second doses. And in total, there were 935,000 second doses administered in total. 30,000 of those were administered today. And again, we're waiting for today's briefing to come, and that should begin any minute now. We also know that in addition to the priority being on second doses of the vaccine, more doses continue to be delivered to Korea. One reason that the vaccine campaign has gone somewhat slowly in recent weeks is that the supply of vaccine doses has been rather tight. And with the securing of several million more doses of the Pfizer vaccine and also the AstraZeneca vaccines, the government says that the original goal of November to achieve herd immunity could be achieved, in fact, as soon as September. That goal was adjusted slightly in the past few weeks. Other countries, of course, have gotten well above half of their populations vaccinated at this point. Korea, again, roughly around the 7% range so far, though that is expected to speed up quite a bit in the coming weeks and months, with school teachers in particular to be encouraged to get vaccinated this summer so that classes can resume, hopefully, in the next semester in person overall. And as we wait for the briefing to begin, we have other news coming in from Israel, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that Israel's airstrikes on Gaza will continue as long as they're necessary. On Saturday, Israeli airstrikes destroyed a 12-story building in Gaza City that housed media organizations, including the Associated Press. Human Rights Watch says it has serious concerns that these strikes have caused disproportionate destruction of civilian property in Gaza. Kim Da-mi reports.
Violent clashes between Israeli troops and Palestinians have spread across much of the occupied West Bank. Israeli planes renewed their airstrikes in Gaza on Saturday, to which Hamas militants responded by firing rockets into Israel. According to Palestinian health authorities, at least 12 people were killed overnight in airstrikes throughout Gaza. Among those killed were a woman and her 3 children after their house was hit in a refugee camp. At least 132 people have been killed in Gaza since Monday, and around 950 others wounded. There were 8 killed in Israel, including a soldier and 6 civilians. To stop the intensifying violence, the international community is stepping up efforts to reach a ceasefire. The UN Security Council is set to discuss the worsening situation during a virtual meeting on Sunday. A U.S. envoy also headed to the Middle East to meet with Israeli and Palestinian leaders to urge de-escalation and to bring calm. Multiple sources reported that Egypt has been pushing for further negotiations between Israel and Palestine. According to a Palestinian official, Egypt, Qatar, and UN mediators have suggested ways to ease the tension, but no agreement has been reached. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Again, if you're just tuning in, we at the Arirang News Center are waiting for today's briefing from the South Korean health authorities to begin to give us the latest on the COVID-19 situation in South Korea. That should begin shortly, and we'll cut over to it as soon as it does. In the meantime, the chief of U.S. Intel, Avril Haines, paid a courtesy call to President Moon Jae-in over the weekend before wrapping up her three-day visit to South Korea, North Korea, and Seoul. The Seoul-Washington alliance are reported to have topped their agenda during these discussions, and the two agreed on the universal values of peace and human rights, which the alliance, they said, is based on. Our senior Blue House correspondent Kim Min-ji reports, and also likely on the table was the Biden administration's new North Korea policy and final coordination ahead of the South Korea-U.S. summit next week.
President Moon Jae-in met with U.S. National Intelligence Director Avril Haines on Friday ahead of his summit with President Joe Biden next week in Washington. South Korea's top office said that the two had in-depth discussions on pending bilateral issues in North Korea. President Moon said that the two countries share universal values such as democracy, human rights, and peace, and hoped that bilateral cooperation on intelligence will develop further. Haines said that the alliance is about more than just security, and also said she respects Moon's efforts for human rights and peace. The U.S. Intel chief's visit to South Korea is widely seen as a means of understanding the situation on the Korean peninsula and seeing Seoul's perspective on the North Korea issue. In particular, it comes after the U.S. completed its policy review in Pyongyang, having decided to take a calibrated, practical approach that is open to exploring diplomacy with North Korea for complete denuclearization.
How she assessed the situation is very important for the U.S. government to devise new policy toward North Korea. Even though the U.S. government mentioned that their review has been completed, but their detailed policy has not been revealed yet. So I think that her visit to DMZ and Seoul this time would provide another level of information for U.S. to use to provide new approach toward North Korea.
Earlier on Friday, Haines reportedly had a luncheon meeting with her South Korean counterpart Park Ji-won to discuss bilateral cooperation in exchanging North Korea-related intelligence. This comes just 2 days after their talks in Tokyo on Wednesday, which also involved Japan. On Thursday, Haines visited the demilitarized zone and met with officials at Seoul's Defense Intelligence Agency. She is also known to have met with South Korea's National Security Advisor Seo Hoon, who has experience in negotiating with North Korea. Haines wrapped up her 3-day stay in South Korea on Friday. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
You're watching Arirang News, and we're waiting for a scheduled briefing to start from the South Korean health authorities. It's due to start at 4:30. It's a little delayed now, going on 10 minutes behind. We'll go to that as soon as it does start. In the meantime, though, most of the art collection donated by the late Samsung Group chair Lee Gun-hee went to the National Museum of Korea and the MMCA. Some pieces, though, have gone to regional museums, and those museums are getting ready to showcase these newly donated works to the public. Our Kim Bo-kyung has a sneak peek.
Nestled in the countryside in the small county of Yanggu, Gangwon-do province and surrounded by birch trees is the Park Sugun Museum. It was established in 2002 to honor the modern Korean artist in his hometown. When Hong Na-hee, the widow of the late Samsung Group chairman Lee Gun-hee, visited the museum not long after its establishment, she made the suggestion of creating a birch tree forest and donated trees to help. Ties between the museum and the Lee family have lasted until this day, enabling them to make donations of Park Sugun's artwork.
The museum received a total of 18 of the artist's paintings, 4 oil paintings and 14 drawings. Park's paintings are simple and modest, yet they portray the everyday lives of regular people in a heartwarming way.
Park is known for displaying empathy toward people's sorrows during the Korean War through his work, and also for his unique technique of imparting physical textures onto the painting itself. One of the 4 donated oil paintings is a girl who carries the baby.
The one showing a girl looking ahead is a very rare piece. Though things would have been difficult for her during that period, she has a warm smile on her face. This is typical of how Park liked to portray people.
Experts say donating priceless art is good for the local economy and the reputation of the museums.
When you take a look at other museums abroad, they have a donation culture and exhibition halls honoring the donors. We're planning to make one too in a few years. I hope we see more of this in Korea.
But this is not the only regional museum to receive artwork donations of hometown artists. Daegu Art Museum will show to the public in June 21 donated pieces, including works by modern artist Lee In-sung. The Ijungsop Art Museum on Jeju Island received 12 pieces and is planning an exhibition for September. That's also when the Jeonnam Museum of Art is preparing to showcase 21 pieces of work by artists such as Chun Kyung-ja and Kim Wan-gi. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Yanggu.
And now let's tune in and listen to today's briefing from the South Korean health authorities, which is now beginning.
I will now start the regular briefing for Sunday, May 16th. I will first explain to you about the developments for the past week. Over the past week, on a daily average, there were around 591 newly confirmed cases. Compared to 561, there was an increase by 4.6%, and compared to 2 weeks ago, it's similar. And across the country, reproduction rate was 0.99, and it was a slight increase compared to 0.93 from the previous week. And when we consider that there was a holiday 2 weeks ago, over the past 3 weeks, the newly confirmed cases has been remaining at around 590 level. There were holidays such as the Children's Day and the Parents' Day. And however, it was fortunate that we did not see a surge in the newly confirmed cases resulting from these holidays, which would have caused gatherings. And the stagnance in the Asian region is also fortunate for us. So this is thanks to all the efforts made by our citizens, and we want to express our gratitude to you. Compared to the past year, even at the similar level, we are seeing a decrease in those that are critically ill. We are seeing less cluster outbreak in the long-term care facilities, and even when there are cluster outbreaks, it is not massive. And right now, we are seeing an increase in the vaccination for the elderly, so we believe that the decrease in the newly confirmed cases and the number of critically ill will continue to decrease. We do not have any risk in terms of our medical system. We have enough hospital beds for the critically ill, and we have around 570 still available, which is very stable. And there are none waiting to be hospitalized. And for those that are minorly ill, of the 16,000, we have around 9,000 hospital beds available, which is at around 58%. However, there are still risk factors, and therefore we cannot be relieved. Right now, in regions such as Ulsan, there has been many spread of the variant form of COVID-19. We are still seeing around 70 newly confirmed cases in these areas, which is still at a risk. And for the Greater Seoul area, we are still seeing an increase. Right now, we see a decrease in the Incheon and Gyeonggi region. However, in Seoul, the number is at around 200 on a daily level. And for the infection itself, it is actually showing up across all areas of our daily lives. It is happening due to family gatherings, which is amounting to around 46%. And when we actually combine it with the 29% from other gatherings, then it is more than 75% coming from our daily lives. And we are also seeing an increase in the variant form of COVID-19 as well. At the end of June, the vaccination for the elderly will be completed, and we want to ask our citizens to wait until then and to make sure that you follow the disease control measures strictly. Please avoid going to confined and crowded places. If it is unnecessary, we recommend you to do it outdoors rather than indoors. It is less risky when you're outdoors as compared to indoors. And I'll update you on the monitoring for disease control measures. The task force team from April to May 13th has done a crackdown for 15,000 sites. We have seen more than 5,000 cases of violation, and administrative orders were imposed for around 4,000. The local government has visited around 24,000 areas such as restaurants. And together with the police office, we have done crackdown for the entertainment facilities as well. And some were penalized when they were actually violating the measures. The CDC had discussions about the disease control measures being taken in cafes and restaurants. We had the relevant people actually directly going to sites to take part in monitoring, and we had several discussion sessions. And together we have come up with a task force team, and we have gone to monitor entertainment facilities and drinking facilities such as bars. And for those that violated the measures, we're going to impose administrative orders and restructure the area as well. The government is going to continue with such a site monitoring, and we want to thank the relevant personnel and the local government officials for supporting us. Dear citizens, starting from last Wednesday to Friday, there were vaccinations that were introduced, and these include both AstraZeneca and Pfizer. And we're going to have additional AstraZeneca coming in tomorrow as well. So in just a few days, we have gotten 3 million doses, and these doses will continue to come in until the end of May. The government has made the commitments, and we are hoping to vaccinate 13 million by end of June, and we have enough room. We actually have more. Now it is important for us to focus on actual vaccination. Starting on this weekend, we will officially start the first dose Pfizer vaccination for those that are 75 years old or older. And for those that are more than 65 years old, we're going to continue getting the reservation, and we're going to start it in earnest starting next week. Right now, the reservation rate for those that are in their 70s is around 58%, which is close to 60%. And for those that are more than 60 years old, it has only been a week, but reservation rate is around 48%. And for those in the early 60s, the reservation rate was at around 28%. The reservation for those that are more than 6 years old will last until end of June, by June 3rd. So if you have not been reserving your vaccination yet, please make sure to do so, and you will be able to get the vaccination at a time that you want, at a place that you want. So we understand that citizens are concerned about the side effects of vaccination. So it is true that you might be worried about it, even if we don't have scientific grounds for it. For AstraZeneca, it is actually being administered in many areas across the world, including UK. And Pfizer has been approved in 93 countries. And there has been more than 1.3 billion vaccinations being carried out across the world. So we are confirming that there are no issues with vaccinations in many different areas. You don't have to be overly worried about it. Vaccination is very effective for preventing deaths, and this has become evident in many countries. For AstraZeneca and Pfizer, it can actually block 80% of the deaths caused by COVID-19, and this was a result that has come up in the UK. And in Italia, there were also analysis results that were announced about it. For AstraZeneca, the fatality rate actually decreases by 95%. from its doses. If you get vaccinated now, it will be safer, especially for the elderly, and our elderly will be able to more freely enjoy their lives. And they will be able to meet their children and grandchildren without worries. And they won't have to stay at home all the time, worried about the infection, and they can actually take part in the courses in the community centers as well and meet friends. And they will also be able to go out on gatherings and eat at restaurants and be able to travel. Once second doses are administered as well, even if they come in contact with patients, they won't have to be going through the 2-week quarantine. Therefore, in order to resume such BAU, we ask you to be vaccinated as quickly as possible. Once you get vaccinated, you will be able to feel safer and you'll be able to be more relieved when meeting others. And vaccination for the elderly is not only for yourselves, but it is also an effort for all of our families. So the more elderly get vaccinated, it will be safer for our children and grandchildren, and you will also be able to resume normal daily lives, such as gathering. So we hope to get vaccination for 13 million elderly and those that are in the vulnerable class by end of June, and we will do our best. And we hope that the elderly and the family members will also participate in vaccination. So we ask you for it. Thank
지금부터
you.
질의응답 시간을 가지겠습니다. 브리핑은 사회적 거리두기 조치로 인해 비대면으로 진행됩니다.
And that'll conclude our coverage of this briefing. Thank you for watching. We'll have more updates for you when Arirang News returns at 6 p.m. Korea time.
It was created in 1907